Ellen McCauley at Pray It Off in Syracuse, New York. I just did what I consider a powerful prayer on the world and brokenness. But many of us have our own brokenness. I've shared so many things over the years about my own personal life, my own personal brokenness that led me to 370 pounds. And in going through all of my clutter, I see so many pictures, photos of myself at 370, 350, 330, and I look at them and I hold them up, and I don't feel disgust, I don't feel disappointment, I feel compassion and love because of the journey, because of God's embrace and where He has led me this day. So He is willing to touch us in our brokenness that we might be made whole. Am I skinny? No. Am I 370? No. Am I filled with faith and thinking of God all day long? Absolutely. Is my first reaction to say to people, I'm going to pray about that. People I barely know text me, can you pray for this person? Can you pray? Can you pray? And I will immediately. Like Martha did that night. Stop right then and start praying right then. Jesus' ministry was to the socially powerless who were the most ready to embrace Him. He sought out the broken people of the world. Those 12 disciples were not Pharisees or Sadducees. They were not rabbis. They were fishermen. They were carpenters. I mean, the only real professional was the tax collector, and that was a terrible job that nobody respected. He sought out the broken people. Jesus is willing to heal and restore to life. And you know, He tells stories about the woman who had the continuous flow of blood. That is one of the reasons why I believe that the Bible is true, because that is such a bad story. The Jews didn't even want to face that women had their periods, let alone talk about a hemorrhaging that lasted forever. When someone was during their monthly time, you couldn't touch them, you couldn't go near them, they couldn't go to temple. It was not a good thing. And here this poor woman had a continuous flow of blood for years and years. And she knew that touching Jesus would make him unclean. That was a Jewish tradition. And yet she was so desperate to heal her brokenness that she reached out in love. And what did Jesus say? Did He say, don't you touch me? Now I'm unclean? He said, your faith has made you whole. That is why I think it's so true. Because they not only tell this story, it's a story about Jesus and how much He loves us. That the most important thing is that we reach out to Him no matter what's wrong with us. You think He doesn't know that we've struggled with our weight? Do you think He doesn't know that there's times when we're sneaking a donut in the car and we think nobody knows? Jesus is up there going, at least you should have got a jelly donut. You're eating a plane, for gosh sakes, you know? Desperation. Desperation can lead many of us to our faith that refuses to be deterred. In 2007, I was desperate. I mean desperate. Didn't want to leave the house desperate. Depressed, desperate. I thought I was the biggest failure on the face of this earth and that I didn't want to see people. I didn't want people to judge me. Just a week earlier, I had gone to dinner with my friends and they looked at me like I was an abomination because I had put on so much weight. And I realized that I needed a change, and it wasn't going to be from toxic people. It was going to be from people who accepted me for who I was. When I stood in front of 25 people, it still brings tears to my eyes. That in January of 2008, I stood there, and at that time I had lost weight on my own, and I was like 338, and I stood there and said to them, let's lose weight together. And they didn't look at me like I was an abomination. They looked at me like, yeah, Let's do it together. And that's why I look at pioneers like Katie and Lisa and Mary Ellen and Bob, and I say, we've been through so much together. We've been through our brokenness together. And that's where Jesus will meet us. And then when unashamed to be identified with her uncleanness. That goes back to the woman with the bleeding. And how often are we ashamed by our brokenness? We're ashamed by our weight. We're ashamed that we can't seem. We think, if I could only have more willpower, if I could only eat less, I'm such a failure, I'm such a loser. And Jesus is saying, I want to help you because I know this isn't an easy journey. He shows kindness and willingness to help. He is there with us always. And then brokenness and inner healing. I mentioned already that God is with us every step of the way with love, non-judgmental love. There's a lot of things going on in this world that I don't always agree with, and yet I think, what would Jesus do? How would Jesus approach that person? What would Jesus do? And Jesus would just put his arms around them and hug them and say, I love you. So I might not always agree with certain things, but that's not my job to judge. My job is to love, and my job is to put my arms around people and hug them and say, I don't know all the answers. I've made a lot of mistakes myself. And I can't experience my own personal healing if I'm too busy looking at the log in everyone else's life. And I love this. As I reflect over my life, I discover some areas that are so hard to look at that I wonder, how can God love me through and through when I experience so much in myself that is unlovable? I must have read that 10 times and said, oh my gosh, how many times do we look at our lives and say, I've done so many unlovable things. And Jesus did not turn his back on us. He did not say, come back when you're thinner, smarter, not screaming at your kids or your husband. Come back. No, he says, I'm here right now, Ellen. I'm here. So we need to remember that. Also, he wants us to change. He says to people, go and sin no more. He doesn't say, I've healed you, so go eat hot fudge sundaes. No, he says, go and sin no more. And we have to admit we need healing. He wants to be in every nook and cranny of our heart. And another thing that helps, I feel, is telling our story to someone. You know, I majored in psychology, sociology, and I benefited from counseling. And I would go to counseling, and, you know, they're paid to listen to you. And I would go, and I would talk to them. And then when Bob and I, you know, were married, and he had a really tough life. And he said, you know, Ellen, can I just talk to you about it? I just want to talk to you. And I'm like, yeah. So we would sit there in the living room, and we would tell each other our lives, and we would share things about the traumas and the things that we lived through, and it was cathartic. It was beautiful. And Jesus is saying to us, that's the kind of prayer life he wants from us. He wants us to say, Jesus, help me to forgive myself because I was a stupid idiot. I was. Stupid idiot. Help me to realize that I can help other people, but I need to free up my light. I need to shine my light. And I can't do that if it's dimmed by my own shame and humiliation. So we need to find someone, and if you don't have someone, one pray it offer. She's in this room tonight, invited me to her house and said, I've got no one to talk to, and I have to share this. It wasn't a sin. It was something traumatic that had happened in her life. And we talked, and we cried, and we hugged, and I've never told another human being, and I won't, to my grave. To my grave. You could try to pull my fingernails out. No. I am there for you. if you need someone to come to your house, you could tell me something terrible. You could say, I murdered someone and I got away with it. And I'd say, well, that is heavy. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. But I will go forward and love you. Also, it's helpful to reimagine. Let's say someone hurt you very badly as a child. Imagine Jesus there. Imagine Jesus there comforting you when bad things happen, because he was there. Maybe we were too young to reach out to him, too young to reach out and ask him to help us. Also, sometimes you just got to cry about it. Bob and I like to play triominoes, and one day we were playing, and I played every sad song that I absolutely love, and we were playing triominoes crying, listening to the sad songs. It was a lot of fun. It really was. We enjoyed it immensely. Really cool. It was great. Also, leptodevinia. You read a chapter from the Bible and pretend you were there. We were there when Jesus was crucified on the cross, and when he took the sins, our sins were on him. We can't forget that our sins were on him. He forgave us. We need to forgive ourselves. Because guess what, everybody? Nothing can separate us from the love of God. Nothing. Stopping right there, Bobby.